They thought she was just a quiet black girl, the kind who stayed out of trouble, sat alone at lunch, and never looked anyone in the eye. But what they didn't know was that those same hands they thought only knew how to hold books had once been trained to end a fight in seconds. The day Jake and his friends tried to choke her in the hallway, they expected fear. Instead, they met calm, steady eyes, and a movement so fast it made the entire hallway go silent. That was the moment Ridgeway High realized they had picked the wrong girl. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from and make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's story is one you won't want to miss. Layla didn't talk much. She was the type of student who always sat near the back of the class, did her work quietly, and walked the halls like she was trying to disappear. She wasn't shy, just observant, the kind of girl who noticed everything but said very little. Her classmates thought she was harmless. Some even called her book girl. But what they never saw was what happened after school. Every evening, when the final bell rang, Layla walked straight to a small boxing gym tucked behind an auto shop on the edge of town. That's where she changed. She wrapped her hands, tightened her gloves, and trained until sweat ran into her eyes. Her coach used to say, "Discipline isn't about fighting, it's about knowing when not to." Layla believed that. She trained for peace, not violence. But one morning, peace wasn't given a choice. And the hallway that had always ignored her would soon never forget her. The first bell had already rung, and the hallway of Ridgeway High was alive with noise. Lockers slamming, sneakers squeaking, laughter echoing against the walls. Students rushed past each other, waving books and slamming doors, but Layla walked through the chaos as she always did, head down, books clutched to her chest. Earbuds in though the music wasn't playing. She used silence like armor. Jake noticed her from across the hall. He leaned against a locker, his backpack hanging open, surrounded by his usual crew. Matt, who laughed too loud, and Aaron, who recorded everything for her followers. They'd made a game out of picking on people who wouldn't fight back, and to them, Layla was the perfect target. Quiet, soft-spoken, alone. "Yo, book girl," Jake called out, grinning. "You got another romance novel in there? Maybe something to teach you how to talk to people?" His friends snickered. Layla kept walking, eyes fixed ahead. She had learned long ago that silence was safer than reaction. "Hey, I'm talking to you." Jake's voice grew louder. He kicked his locker door shut and stepped forward, blocking her path. Matt whistled low, and Aaron already had her phone half raised, hoping something interesting might happen before first period. Layla stopped. Her fingers tightened slightly around the books in her arms. She looked up, not in challenge, just to acknowledge him. Her eyes were calm, unreadable. Jake grinned wider, mistaking her quietness for fear. "What's the deal, huh? Too good to say hi? Or just scared you'll stutter?" Matt laughed again. "Nah, she's shy, bro. Probably spends all her time writing in a diary about us." Layla blinked once. "Can I pass?" she asked softly. Her voice wasn't shaking. It was level, measured, but they heard what they wanted to hear. Jake stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. "Oh, look at that. She talks. Go ahead, say something else, book girl." The crowd had started to form now, students slowing down, phones out. A few whispered, "Just leave her alone," but no one stepped forward. Layla shifted her weight, subtly positioning her foot back, her shoulder turning just slightly. A part of her, the part trained to stay calm under pressure, was already awake. Her heart rate didn't spike, it slowed. Jake leaned in, lowering his voice. "You think you're better than us, huh? Walking around like you're invisible? You ain't special. You're just scared." Then he did it. The thing he would regret most. He reached out and knocked the books from her hands. They hit the floor, pages fanning out like startled birds. The laughter around them grew. Someone shouted, "Ooh!" Layla exhaled slowly through her nose, then crouched to pick them up. Her fingers brushed the torn cover of her notebook. She was careful, calm, until Jake's sneaker came down on the last book, pressing it flat to the ground. "I said I'm talking to you," he hissed. "Look at me when I'm talking." Layla rose again. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't glare. She simply looked up, straight into his face. For the first time, something in her stillness made him pause. "Move," she said quietly. Matt laughed from the side. "Yo, Jake. She's got an attitude now." And maybe it was the laughter. Maybe it was his own pride. But Jake reached forward, one hand shoving her shoulder, the other gripping the back of her neck, pushing her against the locker. The hallway noise dropped instantly. The sound of metal against her back was sharp and cold. Layla didn't move right away. Her hands stayed by her sides, fingers slightly curled. Inside, she counted, 1, 2, 3, like her coach had taught her whenever she felt the urge to react too soon. Her breathing was even. Her eyes stayed fixed on his, unblinking. "Come on," Jake sneered, tightening his grip around her throat just a little. "Where's your smart mouth now?" His friends weren't laughing anymore. The crowd was silent now, waiting. Then something changed. Her gaze shifted. Calm turned to focus, the kind that made every muscle remember what it was trained to do. But she didn't move yet. Not yet. Instead, she spoke, voice quiet, almost gentle. "You should take your hand off me." Jake blinked. Or what? That's when it happened. The smallest movement. Almost invisible. Her shoulder turned. Her arm slid between his wrist and her collar, her weight shifting to one side. The pressure on her neck loosened. Not because he let go, but because she was no longer where he thought she was. In that single second, before the hallway erupted, one thought flickered across Jake's mind. He wasn't in control anymore. For a moment, everything froze. The hallway that had been roaring with noise seconds ago fell into a silence so heavy that even the hum of the overhead lights seemed distant. Jake's hand was still wrapped around Layla's neck, his knuckles pale from the pressure. Her back pressed against the locker, the metal cold against her spine. Her breathing slowed, not from fear, but from focus. Years of training whispered through her veins. "Don't panic. Breathe through it." That's what her coach always said. Her heart didn't race, it steadied. Her eyes shifted from shock to something else, something cold, sharp, and terrifyingly calm. Jake didn't notice it at first. He was too busy trying to impress his friends, who now stood frozen, unsure if this was still a joke or something else entirely. "Say something, book girl," he sneered, his breath hot and uneven. "Come on, say—" Layla moved. It wasn't wild or frantic. It was clean, precise, controlled. Her left hand came up, not to grab, but to guide. She slid her wrist under his forearm, twisted inward, and shifted her weight to her right leg. In one fluid motion, she broke the grip on her neck and pivoted her body sideways, pulling his arm with her. The movement was so smooth that for a split second, Jake didn't even understand what had happened. Then the pain hit. His wrist bent backward and his body followed it. Layla stepped aside, using his own force to throw him off balance. He stumbled, caught himself on the locker, his face red with confusion and embarrassment. The crowd gasped. Erin, who had been recording, lowered her phone slowly, her mouth open. Jake's pride flared before his brain caught up. He lunged again, swinging his arm out wide. It was a clumsy punch, angry, untrained, desperate. Layla ducked under it easily, the air from his swing brushing past her ear. Her body turned with the motion, her left leg pivoting behind him. She didn't hit him. Not yet. Instead, she placed her palm against his shoulder blade and pushed. Just enough force. Just enough timing. Jake stumbled forward again, nearly tripping over his own shoes. He spun around, face burning. "You think that's funny?" he shouted, humiliated. Layla didn't answer. Her eyes stayed locked on him, her breathing slow, her posture straight. She wasn't fighting to win. She was fighting to end it. Matt moved forward now, trying to save face for his friend. "Yo, chill, Jake. She's just—" Before he could finish, Jake charged again, this time both hands out, going for her shoulders. Layla stepped back once. Then she exhaled. One slow breath. And her body reacted on instinct. She caught his arm mid-motion, turned her hips, and redirected his energy downward. His body lifted slightly before crashing to the floor with a thud that echoed through the hall. The sound was sharp, real, final. Jake groaned, holding his shoulder, the air knocked out of him. Layla didn't move closer. She didn't gloat. She didn't even look angry. She just stood there, one step away, her stance balanced and ready in case he came again. Nobody spoke. Not a teacher. Not a student. Not even the ones who had been laughing minutes earlier. The silence stretched. Long, heavy, uncomfortable. Jake looked up from the floor, eyes wide. For the first time, he saw it. The thing everyone had missed. She wasn't quiet because she was scared. She was quiet because she didn't need to prove anything. Layla straightened, her hands falling to her sides again. Her chest rose and fell slowly. The small crowd that had formed began to shift back, as if realizing they had witnessed something they weren't supposed to see. Erin's phone was still recording, her hands trembling now. The screen showed Jake on the floor, Layla standing over him, not triumphant, just still. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was calm, steady, almost soft. "You don't get to put your hands on me." Her words weren't shouted. They didn't need to be. Jake tried to stand, but his pride weighed more than his body. He pushed himself up, muttering something that didn't make sense, eyes darting toward his friends. But they wouldn't meet his gaze. Matt stepped back. Erin lowered her phone completely. The crowd had already started to disperse, whispering. Layla reached down and picked up her fallen books, stacking them neatly. One corner of a notebook was bent. She smoothed it out with her thumb. Her movements were as calm as they had been before any of this began. As she walked past Jake, she paused for half a second, not out of pity, but out of quiet warning. Her voice, low and firm, carried across the hall. "Next time you want to prove you're strong, pick someone who's trying to fight you." Then she walked away. The sound of her footsteps echoed softly down the empty corridor. Behind her, Jake stood in silence, breathing hard, shame burning through his chest. And for the rest of that week, whenever Layla passed through the halls of Ridgeway High, the laughter always seemed to stop just a little sooner. For a heartbeat, the hallway didn't move. No one spoke, no one laughed, no one even breathed. The sound that broke the silence first was the dull clatter of a locker door, still swinging from the force of Jake's fall. Layla stood a few steps away, books pressed against her chest, her face calm but unreadable. The world around her felt suspended. Dozens of eyes watching, phones half raised, hearts racing. The same students who once passed her like she was invisible now stared as if seeing her for the first time. Jake stayed on the floor, one palm flat against the tiles, his other hand clutching his shoulder. His face was flushed, not from pain, but from humiliation. His friends, Matt and Erin, stood frozen a few feet away, the bravado drained out of them. Matt looked from Jake to Layla, confusion on his face. Erin's phone trembled in her grip before she finally lowered it. The red recording light blinked off. Someone whispered, "Yo." She dropped him. Another voice murmured, "She didn't even try." The whispers spread like ripples, faint and nervous. No one dared step closer. Then came the unmistakable sound of shoes clicking sharply against the linoleum, heels moving with authority. The crowd shifted. Students pressed against lockers to clear a path. Mrs. Reynolds, the vice principal, appeared at the far end of the hall. She was a tall woman with a reputation for handling trouble before it had time to explain itself. Her eyes swept over the scene. Jake on the floor, the broken silence, Layla standing still as glass. "What is going on here?" Her voice cut through the air like a blade. No one answered. The hallway, once noisy, seemed incapable of sound. Mrs. Reynolds stopped beside Jake. "Mr. Hughes, why are you on the floor?" Jake opened his mouth, but no words came out. His pride fought with his fear. He glanced at Layla, still calm, still silent, and swallowed. She attacked me," he stammered finally, though the words didn't carry conviction. Mrs. Reynolds turned her head toward Layla. "Is that true?" Layla met her gaze. Her voice was steady, low. "He grabbed me first." The vice principal studied her a moment longer, eyes flicking between the two students. The faint red mark on Layla's neck said everything her words didn't. From behind, Mrs. Reynolds. A teacher hurried forward. Mr. Howard, Layla's English teacher. His tie was crooked from rushing. "I saw part of it," he said breathlessly. "She wasn't the aggressor." The hallway seemed to exhale as he spoke. Mrs. Reynolds nodded slowly, then faced the crowd. "Everyone else, get to class, now!" The command scattered them instantly. Lockers slammed, sneakers squeaked, whispers trailed off as the students dispersed, leaving only a few stragglers who hurried away once her glare found them. Soon the hallway was almost empty, just Layla, Jake, and the two adults. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead. "Both of you come with me," Mrs. Reynolds said, voice firm but even. Jake pushed himself up, dusting off his jeans, avoiding Layla's eyes, his jaw clenched tight, but the fight had drained out of him completely. Layla followed behind, calm steps echoing evenly on the tiles. They walked together down the hall toward the main office. Posters about kindness and respect lined the walls, their cheerful colors oddly out of place. Mr. Howard walked beside Layla, lowering his voice. "You okay?" She nodded once. "Yes, sir." He hesitated. "You handled that better than most adults would have?" Layla didn't answer. Her gaze stayed forward, expression unreadable. In the main office, Mrs. Reynolds gestured for them to sit. Jake slumped into the nearest chair, his eyes darting between the vice principal and the floor. Layla stood for a moment before sitting, her posture straight. "I'll be speaking with both of your parents," Mrs. Reynolds said. "But before I do, I want to hear exactly what happened." Jake tried again to spin the story, but every sentence tangled. When he mentioned her attacking, Mr. Howard quietly added, "There are students who recorded the whole thing. You might want to think carefully before lying." Jake's shoulders sank. His lips pressed into a thin line. Mrs. Reynolds turned back to Layla. "And you?" Layla's reply was simple. "I told him to stop. He didn't." Her tone carried no bitterness, no pride, just truth. For a moment, the vice principal said nothing. Then she nodded once. "You did what you had to do to protect yourself. Next time, walk away if you can." "But from what I can see, you showed more restraint than most people would have." Jake flinched. The meeting ended with quiet paperwork and a warning about conduct, but as they stepped back into the hallway, the air felt different. The usual buzz of voices had returned, yet wherever Layla walked, paths opened. Students turned slightly, giving her space. Not out of fear exactly, but respect mixed with awe. She didn't smile. She didn't meet their eyes. She just walked. Calm, composed, a faint red mark on her neck fading under the fluorescent light. Behind her, Jake trailed out of the office, shoulders hunched. His friends didn't meet him at the lockers this time. Erin avoided him completely, deleting the video she'd once thought would make her popular. By the time the final bell rang that afternoon, Ridgeway High had a new story, one that traveled faster than rumor and louder than laughter. They said the quiet girl flipped the bully. They said she moved like a fighter. But those who had truly seen it knew the truth. She hadn't fought for attention or revenge. She had simply defended her peace. And as Layla walked home that evening, the weight of the day behind her, she felt what her coach had meant all along. That real strength isn't loud. It's quiet, steady, and calm. Just like her. The next morning, Ridgeway High sounded different. The laughter was softer, the footsteps slower, and the whispers carried a new tone, not of gossip, but of respect. The air felt as if it remembered something. The memory of the hallway fight lingered there, like a shadow that refused to fade. Layla walked through the entrance just as she always did, headphones dangling, books against her chest, eyes calm. But this time the crowd parted naturally, not from fear, but from a quiet kind of acknowledgement. People looked up from their lockers when she passed. Some nodded, others simply stepped aside. The same students who once overlooked her now understood that there was more to silence than they'd ever imagined. She didn't smile or change her walk. She didn't crave attention or victory. She just kept moving, steady, composed, peaceful. Inside, she wasn't proud or angry. She was simply relieved that it was over, that she hadn't lost control. Because for her, fighting was never about showing power. It was about knowing when to stop. In the days that followed, videos of the incident surfaced and disappeared. Those who watched them expected a wild brawl, but what they saw instead confused them. A calm girl moving with purpose, not rage, a quiet precision that ended the fight before it truly began. It wasn't the story of a student losing her temper. It was the story of someone who had mastered herself. Teachers whispered about it in the staff room. Some called it discipline, others called it self-defense. But everyone agreed on one thing. Silence, it turned out. Could be louder than shouting. Layla sat in class that week the same way she always had, near the window, scribbling in her notebook. Her notes weren't about the fight. They were about her coach's lessons. In the margins, she wrote a single line in small, careful handwriting. Strength is not what you show. It's what you control. That was what most people never understood. They mistook calm for weakness, quiet for fear, gentleness for surrender. But Layla had learned long ago that storms are silent before they strike. The strongest people aren't the ones who talk the most or fight the hardest. They're the ones who can stand still and still be powerful. As the week went on, Jake stopped coming to school for a while. When he finally returned, he walked with his eyes down, his usual swagger gone. He never spoke to Layla again. He didn't need to. The lesson had already been written across the hallway walls, a reminder of what happens when arrogance meets restraint. Erin, the girl who had recorded the fight, deleted the clip permanently. She started sitting near Layla in class, though they rarely talked. Sometimes Erin would steal glances at her, as if trying to understand how someone so quiet could command so much respect without saying a single word. Mr. Howard, her English teacher, stopped her after class one afternoon. That day in the hallway, he said softly. You taught everyone something I couldn't fit into a lesson plan. Layla smiled faintly. It wasn't a lesson, sir. It was just a moment. He nodded. Sometimes moments teach louder than words. Outside the school gates, life went on. Cars honking, friends laughing, bells ringing. But something inside Layla had shifted. She had faced humiliation, fear, and violence, and she had walked away without becoming the thing she stood against. That was her victory. Not the throw, not the silence of the crowd, but the control she kept when everything in her had permission to break. As she walked home that evening, the late sun stretched her shadow long across the sidewalk. The world looked the same. Old shops, cracked pavement, tired streetlights. Yet it all felt quieter. Not empty, just peaceful. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from her coach blinked on the screen. Heard what happened. Proud of you. You stayed calm. Layla stared at the words for a while, then typed back simply, You taught me well. She slipped the phone away and lifted her face to the soft wind. Somewhere in the distance, she heard the sound of a punching bag. Rhythm, focus, patience. It reminded her that training wasn't just about fists. It was about spirit. Because real strength wasn't about who could hit hardest, it was about who could stay kind in a world that provoked cruelty. It was about who could hold peace in their hands when everything around them demanded war. That day and every day after, Ridgeway High remembered the quiet girl, not because she fought, but because she proved that power doesn't need noise. She showed that silence isn't weakness, and calm isn't surrender. Sometimes, the most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest one. It's the one who knows how to breathe, how to wait, and how to walk away. And as the last light of the day settled on her face, Layla smiled to herself. Not with pride, but with peace. Because she finally understood that true power lives where the noise ends, and the calm begins. If this story moved you, if it made you angry, tense, shocked, and finally satisfied when justice was served, let your voice be heard. Comment wherever you're watching from. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Because together we can keep rewriting the narrative, one story at a time.